Speaking of moments, you've been, as you mentioned, your career with the Fever. First six, though, were tough, obviously. They weren't as easy. You guys have made the playoffs the last two. What's been the big turnaround? How have you viewed the way the team has grown organically?
Then you bring in Caitlin, who changed the world, changed the dynamic of basketball. And as a friend and as a player, you grow to appreciate her because, certain doors have opened because she's come to the Fever, and you have to respect that. And I love the teammate and person in her because she's accepted it with so much grace and even welcomed us with open arms to, make.
Nobody warned you about the real story hiding behind every Caitlin Clark headline. Forget the buzzer beaters. Forget the highlight reels. Forget the endless online arguments. Underneath all of that noise, something else was happening. A quiet fight for power, for control, and for the very direction of the WNBA's future. Most people watched the tension on the court and assumed it was simple. Just basketball. Just a rookie getting tested. Just a few veterans throwing some shade. That's the story we were fed, and for a while, it made sense. But here's where it gets strange. The little moments, the side-eye in interviews, the stiff body language courtside, the pointed comments dropped in press conferences, none of it felt random. It felt connected, like pieces of the same puzzle. For weeks, fans turned into amateur detectives, lining up clips, comparing timelines, cross-referencing quotes. And what they found wasn't a coincidence. It was a pattern. Small jabs from different players, in different cities, somehow landing on the same message at the same time. If you were one of the people piecing this together, you already know it didn't add up to simple rivalry. It looked like something coordinated, a quiet attempt to slow down Caitlin Clark before she could reshape the entire league around her. This was never about one rookie having a rough week or one veteran having a bad attitude. This was about legacy, about influence, about the fear that one 22-year-old could flip the league on its head faster than anyone was ready for. And that fear didn't just live in Indiana. It stretched across the whole WNBA. What followed, according to insiders and fans who dug deep into it, was one of the boldest and least talked about power plays in recent league history. The goal, allegedly, was to crack a locker room from the inside and turn teammates against each other. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. The plan collapsed before it ever really started because of one person they were sure they could use, who ended up being the one who stopped it cold. So let's get into it. How a group of veterans supposedly tried to spark a quiet rebellion inside the Fever locker room. Why they zeroed in on one specific teammate to do it. And how that single decision blew up in their faces and changed the trajectory of the league. If you've ever felt like the headlines were only telling you half the story, stick around, because this one goes way deeper than the iceberg tip you've already seen. On the surface, everything looked explainable. The league's official line was that any friction around Clark's arrival was just normal. A little competitive fire, some rookie hazing, veterans reminding the new girl that nothing comes easy in this business. That was the story for months. Rookies get tested. Media exaggerates. Nothing to see here. Except the more that explanation got repeated, the less it held up. Fans noticed the timing, the rhythm of the comments, the way players from completely different teams kept circling back to the exact same talking points. It stopped looking like rivalry and started looking like choreography. And that's when people started asking the real question. If this was just normal competitive noise, why did it always seem to point at Clark specifically? Why did it feel less like spontaneous tension and more like an organized pushback? The theories started on Reddit, on Twitter, on TikTok, frame-by-frame breakdowns of interviews, side-by-side comparisons of quotes. Slowly, a bigger picture started forming. Not about one player or one bad moment, but about a deliberate effort to control the narrative before Clark could take ownership of it herself. And if there's one thing WNBA fans are good at, it's noticing the details nobody else catches. The suspicious timing, the little inconsistencies, the things left unsaid. By late summer, healthy rivalry wasn't cutting it anymore. There was too much smoke for there to be no fire. And that's when the real question started. If this wasn't a coincidence, who actually benefits from slowing Clark down? And why did it always trace back to the Indiana Fever? That's where the official story ends, and the real one begins. Here's how the alleged plan is said to have worked. Nobody tried anything obvious. That would have been too risky, too easy to expose. Instead, it was slow and quiet. Cold shoulders at practice, vague digs in interviews, whispered comments about media favorites getting more credit than they'd earned. The goal wasn't to hurt Clark's public image directly. It was to weaken her standing inside her own locker room. The idea was simple and brutal. Turn a teammate against her, not the fans. If even one influential Fever player started believing Clark was getting handed everything before she'd earned it, resentment could spread on its own. Long seasons and uneven spotlight have a way of doing that. This is the oldest trick in team sports: divide and conquer. Break the chemistry inside the locker room, and it doesn't matter how good someone is on the court. The weight of her own team turning skeptical can slow a player down faster than any defense. And in this case, the people allegedly behind the plan thought they'd found the perfect person to make it happen. A veteran who had given everything to a struggling franchise and never really got the credit. Now add a rookie walking in and instantly becoming the face of the league, the endorsements, the spotlight, the hype. Mix in years of being overlooked, and you've got the perfect setup for resentment. Their target, Kelsey Mitchell. Mitchell wasn't just any player. Long before Clark ever stepped on an Indiana court, she was the backbone of that franchise, a former first-round pick who held the team together through years nobody else was paying attention to. From a strategy standpoint, it made sense. You don't try to break a team through a rookie or a bench player. You go after the one voice that can shift the mood of an entire locker room. If Mitchell showed even a flicker of frustration, one comment about earning your spot, one short, clipped answer to a reporter, that would be enough. It would validate everything the doubters were already whispering. The plan wasn't built to silence Caitlin Clark. It was built to isolate her. All they needed was for Kelsey Mitchell to play along. But as the next part of this story shows, the person they thought would be their biggest weapon turned out to be the one who tore the whole plan apart. To understand why Mitchell mattered so much, you have to understand what she'd already been through. She wasn't just a name on the Fever roster. She was the Fever for almost a decade. A team stuck in a cycle of losing seasons, coaching changes, and being ignored by national media. When she was drafted back in 2018, there was hope she'd turn things around. Instead, she went through 6 straight losing seasons and 5 different head coaches. Every night, she walked onto the floor knowing the odds weren't in her favor. And she still showed up, still carried the weight, still faced the press after every brutal loss. That kind of grind builds a different kind of toughness, not the kind that shows up in a stat sheet. Mitchell became the steady presence of a franchise that kept fading from view, and she never gave up on it. Then Clark arrived, and everything shifted overnight. The same team Mitchell had been holding together suddenly had a new face, a new story, a rookie who hadn't had to earn any of the years Mitchell had put in, yet was already being called the savior of the entire league. From the outside, it's easy to imagine how that could sting. The player who'd carried the franchise for years was suddenly a supporting character in someone else's headline. That's exactly why the people behind this alleged plan thought Mitchell was their perfect entry point. They figured she had to be sitting on some resentment, maybe even secretly agreeing with the doubts swirling around Clark's fast rise. They didn't just need any veteran, they needed a credible one. Someone whose frustration wouldn't look like jealousy. It would look like wisdom, like a respected leader finally speaking her truth after years in the shadows. On paper, it was a smart bet. Mitchell had put in the work. She had the respect of her teammates and the league. If she questioned Clark's spotlight, people would listen. But this is exactly where the whole plan fell apart, because they thought they understood Kelsey Mitchell. They didn't. Years of hardship hadn't made her bitter about her team's future. It made her fiercely protective of it. Instead of resenting Clark, Mitchell saw her as the missing piece she'd been waiting years for. She wasn't chasing the spotlight for herself. She wanted a winning culture and a reason for Fever fans to believe again. That loyalty is exactly what made her immune to the whole scheme. And that miscalculation became obvious the moment cameras turned on her. Whoever was behind this expected frustration. Instead, they got the opposite. Mitchell didn't complain about sharing the spotlight. She praised her teammates for staying composed. And she said something that instantly reframed everything. That Clark hadn't just changed the team, she'd changed the entire sport. Not hype, not a polite compliment. A direct contradiction of the narrative that Clark was overrated. Then she went further, telling cameras that fans and players alike needed to see Clark as someone opening doors for the whole league, not as competition. One sentence, and the entire framing of the story flipped. What had been painted as jealousy and rivalry suddenly looked small next to what Mitchell was describing. The people who built this plan misjudged more than just Mitchell's loyalty. They assumed old-school locker room politics, quiet grudges, wounded egos, would still work the way they used to. Instead, they ran into a team built on mutual respect and shared goals, one that had already moved past that kind of thinking entirely. So who was actually behind it? That part remains murky. No confession, no leaked messages, just patterns fans noticed online, comments from prominent names like Cheryl Swoops and Aya Wilson that seemed to downplay the hype around Clark, timed suspiciously close to key moments of the season. None of it is confirmed. It's speculation built from interviews, side-eyes, and social posts open to interpretation. But it's easy to understand why the theory took hold emotionally. These are women who fought through years when the league barely got airtime, who pushed for better pay and recognition with almost no spotlight. Watching a rookie arrive to instant endorsements and superstar treatment could easily feel like their struggle was being erased. Others argue it's simpler than a conspiracy, just a few blunt comments amplified into something bigger by the internet. Maybe both are partly true. Either way, the result was the same. A clash between old guard and new guard, between legacy and momentum. And Indiana's locker room became the unlikely place where that clash either could have torn a team apart or brought it together. Mitchell chose the second option, and in doing so, she basically drew a line and said, whatever story people want to tell about us, it stops here. That decision mattered more than people realized, because the league itself had already changed. This isn't the WNBA of 10 years ago, where the spotlight was small and scarce. New TV deals, bigger crowds, more sponsorship money. Clark's rise wasn't taking opportunity away from anyone. It was expanding the whole pie. The old playbook of whisper campaigns and quiet sabotage simply didn't fit a league that was growing this fast. So instead of breaking the Fever apart, the attempt to divide them ended up uniting them. And it sent a message far beyond one locker room. Influence isn't inherited anymore. It's earned every single season by every single player. What started as a quiet campaign to slow down a rookie turned into a test of whether the WNBA could grow into something new or stay stuck fighting the battles of its past. And it took just one veteran, choosing loyalty over ego, to answer that question. So here's what we want to know from you. Was this the start of a real shift in the league, or just one moment in an ongoing power struggle that's far from over? Do you think Kelsey Mitchell's stand changed something bigger, or was it just one battle in a much longer war? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear exactly where you stand on this. And if this kind of deep dive storytelling is what you're here for, don't scroll past without hitting that like button, subscribing, and turning on notifications, because the next chapter of this story is coming, and you don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.